Spring training is upon us, and Ty is ever so happy. So tonight we are going to talk about some of those spring training battles and what they will mean headed into the 2022 season. It's time for Dingers.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk. And
a long time.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just Adrian Hauser that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs joined again, as always, by Robbie Baseball from the Murder Room. What's happening, Robbie? Part 2 tonight. For those of you that are following along on the live streams, you're getting double the one, double the fun here on Dingers.
Yeah, we were just so excited to record 2 podcasts that didn't exceed an hour and 45 minutes that were like, I think we could do it in one night.
And we failed on the first episode.
Yeah, I was gonna say the first one I said, let's do it in 45. And then I said, I'll even set a timer. And then I didn't. And we went over an hour. But that's okay, because this one we're not going to. But this is fun. This is spring training battles. This is like the rumors, the notes, the whatever. And then what do we think? Like, what are the logical steps? Let's step back from reading the reports and seeing, this guy who is affiliated and this guy who isn't affiliated. And I am excited because I have not seen the questions, and I always see the questions. So this is fun for me.
And this is fun. For those of you that don't know, Robbie normally prepares the research and the way that we go through it as the way we prepare for episodes. So, it is fun when the tables are turned. And my research, really very simple: find link, read article, analyze. So, that's why I'm not responsible for these sort of things. Yeah.
I am the captain, as my shirt says that my son made me in the summer.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of, like, my research is equivalent to Robbie doing spreadsheets. So those of you that are long-term listeners, you know what that's about.
That's mean. That's my spreadsheets are legend. Wait for it. Dairy. But yeah. All right, Ty, I don't know. I don't have another drink to drink, but if you need it, I know you already cut to the segment, just a glitch. Do what you gotta do.
For those of you listening on the audio, that will be meticulously cut out. So
you'll edit that.
Yeah.
Oh, but none of my errors.
Never. You don't have that power.
So they're gonna hear all about me talking about Brent Honeywell, and then you're not gonna get rid of that just because his arm fell off. Oh, great, thanks.
Yeah, again.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
Just athletes.
9,
Athletes.
10. I don't know if you heard that, Ty, but I did 100.
Yeah,
just doing.
I watched, and it looked more like 6.
It's a 25-pound weight. Oh, and I don't want my arm to fall off, so I am staying in peak physical condition. But Megadesk can take it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is Megadesk ready for that? I don't.
Oh yeah, it's been on Megadesk.
So we'll dive right in because as you mentioned, we're gonna try and roll through it quickly. And since we have no boats to talk about, it's still borderline winter up here. We'll get right into the battles here. The first one is kind of a downer, to be blunt, because it is the Pittsburgh Pirate shortstop battle, which, as we know, about 45 minutes before we started recording the first episode tonight, O'Neal Cruz was announced that he's being optioned. So this one's a bit irrelevant. But a good lesson for those of you that get excited about big prospects like O'Neal Cruz, he was never, ever going to make the team out of camp. The Pirates are not in contention. They have no reason to start his service clock. This is classic contract suppression, period. It did not go away in the CBA, and as a result, he's heading on his way down. His replacement, Kevin Newman, is the likely option. There's probably a couple other guys in that roster that you could see there. Robbie, is there anybody else in that battle that you want to touch on other than the obvious Kevin Newman?
Without getting far off track, like we've got Cole Tucker, who is also a former first-round pick in 14 the year before, who just has not been able to put it together, not been able to do good things. And Michael Chavis is in town as a potential at-bat stealer, to take away some opportunities. So Chavis could carve himself out a role possibly at second base, and Hoy Park, who was just great last year in AAA with the Yankees, got traded to Pittsburgh, started to get some time at the end of the year. He's a lefty bat, which is why I was mentioning the fact, so Tucker's a switch hitter, Newman's a righty, Park is a lefty, and I think very early on in the year we could get into platoon situations with Chavis, which it could be left field. I don't know that it'll be first base, with DH, because Dan Vogelbach is now in town, so there might be some home runs that way. But I like the idea of Hoy Park slowly becoming the Pittsburgh shortstop / middle infielder move around guy. Hoy Park, that's the pick.
I disagree with you on that one, Robbie. I'm going with Cole Tucker. I think it's his job to lose because I think they need to know what he is. I think they need to throw him out there. O'Neal Cruz is the shortstop. We're going to see him the minute we cross the contract suppression timeline. He's going to be a Pittsburgh Pirate. So I really believe that they're going to throw it to Cole Tucker to give him a brief shot to show whether he can at least be relevant, whether it's for a trade for Pittsburgh or whether it's to make him the obvious second baseman until Nick Gonzalez gets here. So I think those are the realities of how these decisions get made, and I think he's the best player at the shortstop position. Like Kevin Newman, we know is a reasonable backup, reasonable option. I just don't think he's a long-term guy, so I think you'll see them throw it to Tucker to start the year.
Well, if Tucker's already at second base, that's my thing. If Tucker is going to be the second baseman, I could see that movement between Newman, Tucker, and Park for at bats. But honestly, Ty, I kind of feel like Pittsburgh probably knows Tucker's not great. K percentage is north of 25 at times. You got potential issues with him, and then Park is just new blood. But at the same time, there are guys like Ben Gamel and Anthony Alford that look like they are locks in this starting lineup. So a lot could change in the next 10 days.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Pittsburgh. Let's call it spade a spade.
Well,
here.
At the same time, nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. A bunch of mediocrity. I mean, that's been the Pittsburgh thing for a while now. So nothing surprising there. Next on the list is the Dodgers closer's job. And to me, this one's fairly obvious, but I know this will give you pause because you like both guys. Daniel Hudson, Blake Trinan, and anybody else. Those are the two obvious ones. Is there anybody else in that bullpen that you could see stealing some of this sunshine?
Well, I mean, once upon a time, it was thought to be a Bruiser Gratterall's type job. Phil Bickford, I don't know what the injury is, but he was pretty good last year for spots when he came in. But I mean, to me, it's Blake Trinan's job, and Daniel Hudson has been good, been a World Series closer with Washington in 19, but I don't know if it was 20 or 21, whatever. He just didn't come back strong from it. I think it was 2020. He did not come back strong from that. And Blake Trinan has been in a similar spot, although a couple years younger than Hudson. Trinan also went through his trials and tribulations a couple of years ago and then stabilized with the Dodgers. So I see no reason why he wouldn't be getting the first crack, but they're both righties. It could be mixed depending on rest as well.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, the only one I'm going to throw in just as a late season flyer for this job is Dustin May. I think could be a very realistic recovery for the Tommy John guy coming out with the only pants tight enough to go toe-to-toe with Robbie Ray. Number 3 on this list, Tigers first/second baseman. This is a weird one for me. Harold Castro, Willie Castro, Spencer Torkelson. I think a lot of people think it's going to be Torkelson. The CBS article that we are running through this drill on, which kudos to CBS guys, by the way. I like this article. It's well put together. It's a good thought-provoking thing. That's why we're going through it. But I just don't think there's a chance that Detroit runs Torkelson out there. So what are your thoughts here, Robbie? Do you like either of these guys? Is there an alternative? I believe there is, but I'll let you go to it first.
Well, I would say that they just get creative with like Jonathan Schoop and possibly, I don't know that they would want to, but possibly have Miggy hang out early season over there too. I just don't think it is Torkelson because there's no point in Detroit losing a complete season of Torkelson in 5 years, like you losing that season when he's going to be 28 to have an extra 2 months of him when he's 22. So I think that's how you kind of have to look at it. Is it's not that you want him right away right now, it's that you don't want to lose him when he could be going into his absolute prime. So you get that extra year by hanging him down, and it sucks. But also he doesn't have 500, I don't think he has 500 AAA at bats that you can look back on and say he dominated. Now he was good last year. I don't remember. I think north of 20 dingers. Obviously 27. No, those are called RBIs. What are those? I've never heard of them. AAA, he had 11 home runs, 25 for the year. That was the total tie. So 177 at bats at AAA. So that's an easy one to not promote. Right there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Candelario played 43 games at first base last year.
Oh, so he played that many. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the obvious guy here. I don't know why it's not obvious to the writers of said article here. But that one I think is a no-brainer for the reasons that you stated, but also Scope's there. I don't think we're going to see Miggy out there too often unless they absolutely have to put him out there. But I do think the reality is those two guys are going to split one.
114 games for Jonathan Schoop last year at first base. So
yeah I think it's those two guys.
Ty, on a previous podcast, you had mentioned Gleyber Torres as the second baseman. And you had said that on one of the leagues that we've got him in, or you've got him in, but we play in together, that he doesn't have it at the moment. He played 19 games at second base last year, and a lot of dynasty leagues, including the one that we're talking about, need 20 games to get it over for next year. And then in season, it's typically 5 and sometimes 10 games before a player will add. So for some people who might be like, well, if this player doesn't play there much, what's the point? Because it could only take, you see shortstop only for Gleyber Torres right now, depending on your format, doesn't mean he's not going to end up very quickly becoming a shortstop. Second base.
Absolutely.
Second base.
Yep, all good. Yeah, I think that's an obvious one though. In Detroit, I think that will play out that way. I do like Willie Castro as a sneaky bench bat with some versatility. So I think he'll be the likely utility guy on that team. I'm not as high on Harold Castro myself, but
no, just fill in guys and not elite, right? Like
correct. Neither of those guys are.
Not even league average. They're just guys.
Exactly. The next one you're going to love, Robbie. This is right up your alley.
Oh, okay.
The center field / designated hitter for your Seattle Mariners. And the 3 players in question are Abraham Toro, hyphenated Hernandez, which is interesting. And that's the first time I've seen that written. Luis Torrens and Julio Rodriguez. I'd also like to throw Kyle Lewis into the designated hitter conversation because I do not believe he's going to be run out as a full starting position guy to start the year. So I want to include him in this conversation.
Well, I think Lewis is going to start the year on the restrict IR. Is that what it officially is now? IR?
Yep.
Okay. So I think he'll be on the reserve. Yeah. I think he'll be on the injured reserve and then come in as a DH. And I see no reason why they wouldn't want to allow him to do everything in the outfield except play the games. Like, they'll take your fielding practice and do all that stuff, but let's really ease him in because there's no point in having steps back. I would love it to be Julio Rodriguez, and he's doing perfectly fine this spring, but I don't think they need to exercise that option yet. And for a team that's going to win 100 games, you can bring number 44 up at a later date and continue to roll along. Or if you're having issues, if Jesse Winker's splits are messed right up for whatever reason. Suarez's baseline is 200 now. Like if you're having some issues with keeping innings going, with turning the lineup, if Jared Kelenick's struggling mightily, then maybe you reach into Julio Rodriguez. But I don't know why you would want to play that card off the gate. I don't like the idea of Abraham Toro going from second, third base all of a sudden to center field in Seattle. That sounds really tough. But I mean, none of it sounds good, right? Like even like Mitch Haniger in right field sounds good, and Kelenic, I thought he was more center fielder. But
so the article writes this, and I think it's hilarious. Is that Kelenic no longer looks like the center fielder long term? So that the way it's written is it seems as if he's just irrelevant. He's fodder. He's no longer a major league player. So when it's June and you see me buying Kelenic stocks everywhere, that's when you should also pay attention, because that is the post-hype timeline for Kelenic. I'm saying it now because I need to put it on the record, and I need it before Robbie homers out on Mariners and says it was his idea. This one is mine. You can have all the rest of them. I'm taking Kelenic on that timeline.
Sure, I'm just saying. For me, I would start Kelenic there, and then I would.
It has to be.
I would move Rodriguez in and into right field or whatever. Move him to I don't care. Move him wherever when he comes up. But it's very much like they're talking about in Washington. I hope this isn't a question. They're talking about what's going to happen at shortstop with Luis Garcia and Alcides Escobar. And the word on the street is Luis Garcia will be a full-time player in 2022. He will start at either the MLB level with the everyday job or at AAA. He will not be a bench bat for the Nationals. So it's a matter of, balls in your court, Garcia, play good D, show us that you're not going to be overmatched early in the games when you're seeing the MLB pitchers, or you're going to see him there. So I could see something like that with Rodriguez, where they're like, we want you to go down and play every day, and you will be the center fielder, or, for Kelenic, you are the center fielder, show us in the show.
Yeah,
So
I agree. It's
going
to be Kelenic. It has to be Kelenic. He needs major league at bats. That's just what he needs for his development. I don't think Seattle's going to be as competitive as they were last year, even though arguably they got better. I just don't think they're going to win all the close games that they won last year. I just think it's that simple. They're going to be a good competitive team. They're just not going to be borderline playoffs. That's my prediction. Moving ahead, Tigers center field. The options here are Riley Green. We talked about Torkelson before, and yo boy Victor Reyes.
It's Victor Reyes.
Yeah, it's 100% Victor Reyes. And for the exact same reason we talked about all these rookies. And if you're listening, you should be catching on to a trend here. Contract suppression. It's a thing, right? Yeah. I will say this, though. If there's an organization that is ready to promote the guys, it is the Tigers. They're the one organization in this conversation that I think both players are borderline ready. I still think Torkelson needs a little more seasoning. I don't think Riley Green does. That's my opinion. I think Riley Green is ready, but I think you'll see both of them start down because there's no need to run your two franchise players out in the cold in Detroit in early season. I think that's the sole reason they're going to be sent down is the pressure, the cold, all that stuff that happens early season. I just think Victor Reyes is the obvious choice here.
Yeah, and Victor Reyes had a terrible start to last year, Ty, but he was okay to finish. So there is reason to believe that you can get a good year out of Victor Reyes. And I mean, we were laughing about Robbie Grossman signing last year. Well, Robbie Grossman had a heck of a year in all categories except average. So you just have to look at things like what are the surroundings and what are things that they can do better. Well, maybe Victor Reyes sorted out what he can do really well as a ball player, and that's what he's going to bring to the table in Detroit this year.
Yep, I agree. I think he's very unappreciated. You and I have both talked about him. We both owned him in several leagues over the years. Forgotten soldier there for sure, no questions. This next one's an absolute dumpster fire.
Wow, now I'm interested.
It's a great question. Padres closer.
Oh,
so the list here is excellent because it's gonna make you so torn, and I'm gonna leave it in the appropriate order. Luis Garcia, Dinelson Lamet, Robert Suarez, Emilio Pagan, and Pierce Johnson.
Yeah, isn't that horrible? That is ugly. So everyone's going to say Lamet. Everyone's going to say Lamet because he should be the K guy, right? He can keep the ball out of play. Pierce Johnson, since he's come to San Diego, has been good. Not great, good. And I know earlier in the offseason, he was slated in as like the closer kind of candidate guy. But last year, Emilio Pagan was slated in as the closer guy. And so was Drew Pomeranz. And they ended up, who's with Arizona now, Ty? That's the closer. Because that's the guy that was with San Diego last year. Veteran Mark Melanson. Melanson came in and took the job, and it was his job for the year. So I feel like unless they want to do something different, like the Robert Suarez, because where did he come from? Japan, right? Yeah.
So, he had a 1.16 ERA with 42 saves in the Japanese league.
Yeah. So unless they want to lean on him initially, which I feel like if they do, it's probably just his job. It's really interesting to me to see. It would be really interesting to me to see them mix it around. And I would love it to be Pierce Johnson, because I've liked Pierce Johnson for this will be my third season. But I'm going to reasonably
forever.
Yeah, as soon as he came back, I was really excited for him. So because of that, I'm going to say Robert Suarez, because he is in a better position, but he's doing the same thing Pierce Johnson did 3 years ago. So Robert
let
Suarez.
me put this in your brain and make what you just said really difficult. So he had the 1.16 ERA, pretty good. 62 innings, right? 42 saves, reasonable. He did all this with a 0.77 whip, which I know gets you excited. Here's the thing. This is the thing. 8.4 strikeouts per 9 out of your closer, and that's in the Japanese league.
I'm going to say that's manageable. Here's why. I don't think Mark Melanson was a K per 9 last year either.
Cool, but Melanson has the classic 12-6 to get weak contact, fly balls, ground balls. My assumption here, based on the stat line, and I'll be honest, I do not know a whole lot about this Robert Suarez character.
Right.
I'm assuming based on this profile, this is a sinker ball guy. It just seems like it based on this profile. I don't know that the San Diego defense is good enough, with the exception of Machado, to cover that expectation. So that's my concern. I don't know enough to know that that's good or bad. I will say this: the whip is fairly consistently good for him in full seasons, so that's not bad. But there are some rough years mixed in here. So I don't know. It's a dumpster fire. There's no other way to say this. Like, they do not have an established closer. Period.
I'll stick with Suarez. I don't like the idea of Lamet, but I would be happy if it was Pierce Johnson. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw one other one at you. Chris Paddock.
Okay, talked about in a recent episode.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put it out there. Same question. Red Sox. Matt Barnes, Jake Diekman, Garrett Whitlock, and any other bum that the Red Sox added.
Durbin Feldman. I'm just kidding. It's not Durbin Feldman.
Questionable bullpen.
It's Matt Barnes, and it was Matt Barnes a month ago when we first started talking about it, and it's been Matt Barnes since the end of last year. Garrett Whitlock.
I'm out. I gotta pause. It's been Matt Barnes with the exception of like middle of August to the end of September last season, because he ran out of gas.
As did Adam Ottavino, who was in line to come in and take over and do some good things too. And then Ottavino struggled too. And you don't see Ottavino on this team again. Correct. So I feel like Jake Diekman, he's a lefty. He's not going to get the bulk of those opportunities. Garrett Whitlock, assuming that he is not getting stretched out, assuming they're just going to say, you are a Rule 5 bonus for us, and we are going to get all we can from the bullpen for you. I think because of what he did last year, which was some multi-inning stuff, and I'm just going to look and see how he finished last year as far as his outings were concerned.
Whitlock?
Yeah, Whitlock.
Whitlock was struggled, hit and miss. Still very good, but just like classic rookie run out of gas a little bit. Like, it was obvious. He still had good stuff, just didn't have it all because he was being stretched.
Well, that's what I wanted to check was what were his innings. So I'm dating this all the way back to August 26th. So we've got the last 5 weeks of the season, 1.2 innings, 1 inning, 2 innings, 1.1, 1.1, 2 innings, 2/3 of an inning, 1, 1, and 1. So he finished the year the last 4 were an inning or less. But yeah, I would say that he is in a better position to help the Red Sox with more than an inning this year, which you will not want to give to a closer. So I'm sticking with Barnes. I think, like you said, yeah, sure, Barnes ran out of gas, or just, whatever. But at the end of last year, Boston was doing everything they could to like not make the playoffs. And because we were saying as Jays fans, like, what the heck's going on in Boston? Like, they're just losing games. I don't remember if it was like a streak of 10 days at some point, like mid-September, where we looked at the AL East and no one had a 500 or better record, or maybe it was Tampa only or something like that. It was weird. Like, no, like when Seattle was roaring at the end, the AL East was like bums. So, but anyway, that's my pick. Give me Barnes all day as the closer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love Barnes as the closer. I think he's going to get the job, but I want to see Boston make an effort to put somebody else there. That's honest opinion. Dodgers 4th or 5th starter. Tyler Anderson, Tony Gonsolin, Andrew Heaney, David Price. And I think we got to throw Trevor Bauer into that just until he's not in it. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say mid-April when we know what's up with Bauer. Like,
yeah, whether you're in or out on him, it needs to be part of this conversation. That's just a straight fact. What do you got here, Robbie?
Well, I was just going to say Danny Duffy signed there too, right? And he's not hurt. So
he is hurt, just recovering. I mean, he's recovering, so he's hurt in theory.
Like, my initial thought was when I didn't hear Duffy was, well, unless he is hurt, it would be Heaney and Duffy, but then that's giving you 4 lefties. And then your only righty.
Duffy has 0 spring innings, just so you know.
Okay, so he hasn't. So the odds of him even being in contention is
Correct.
low. Then I guess we're gonna have to say like Heaney, Gonsolin. But I mean, we talked about this on the weekend when we were doing the home league draft. Like, that Dodger rotation goes from like really cool looking, lots of options last year to this year. You're looking and you're like, what happened, right? Like, Andrew Heaney did finish last year well with the Yankees, but he still got $9 million in the offseason. So I guess that's the guy, and then maybe they're going to dink around. I don't want to say David Price is going to start, but like, I don't know. Does David Price go and start?
I think Gonsolin is the 4 for sure. I think he's the best of this group by a significant margin.
Yeah, he definitely would be the 5th because of Walker Buehler being the 1st.
Yeah, and I think they're built. Yeah, they're built to piggyback the other guys. Like, I really think their whole bullpen and start like back end of the rotation is built to piggyback. So I think we're going to see it. I've been talking about
the
it
extra
for years.
Guys, right?
Yeah, I've been talking about it for years. I think this is the first team, and I think they're going to do it. I really do. But if there's a guy, I agree with you. Heaney is probably the one. Same thing, 4th, 5th starter. We're moving to Wisconsin and Milwaukee. We got Aaron Ashby, which is the Dynasty super hype guy that everybody wants to be in on. We got Adrian Hauser, which is everybody's favorite guy to forget. And then we got Eric Lauer, who is no man, except for maybe the guy that could end up winning the job here, coming from San Diego, funny enough, in a trade for
Zach Davies. It was Zach Davies, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. You are right on that one.
Yeah, it was like a 2-for-1. Lauer was actually good last year, so I'm definitely giving Lauer a spot in that rotation. And he's also, I think, the only lefty. And if I'm given the second, I mean, I gotta give another guy a job here. I gotta go with the vet, and you put the rookie back at AAA, and then or the youngster, and Ashby waits for his turn. I don't see the need to push. They already won the division last year, and like Freddie Peralta needs to be Freddie Peralta again, and Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff just need to maintain. I mean, those are high levels, but they need to maintain those high levels. And if Eric Lauer is solid like he was last year, then you can really dink around with that 5th one and even play a hot hand. But I mean, Adrian Hauser should be serviceable. They don't all need to be sub 4 ERA, K per 9 dudes. Some of them can just pitch you 5 innings and you're okay with that because your team's good. Because you got Keston Hiura batting 400 in spring training.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, except for the Hiura comment, and then definitely the location of Ashby. I don't think there's a chance Ashby ends up in AAA, but I do think he's a bullpen guy. I think we talked about last episode a little bit with Corbin Burns, and they're going to run him out to polish the pitch a little bit. I think they're going to make him an elite guy by giving him big innings out of that bullpen. And I think he's going to set up a really nice 7-8-9 for Milwaukee, where you have Ashby, Devin Williams, Josh Hader. I really like that scenario. And I think you got Boxberger from the right side, who can be a 6th inning guy where he really hasn't been anywhere in his career, but makes him a pretty good 6th, 7th inning guy, right? So I do think that sets up a really good bullpen if they leave him there. So I think that's the outcome on that one for me. Moving ahead, Mets designated hitter. This is a tough one. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is maybe the hardest one so far. The candidates here are Robinson Cano, JD Davis, and Dominic Smith. So that's a difficult one. You have guys that play 3 positions, right? So Cano being the second, theoretically he's going to lose that job to McNeil. JD Davis is probably going to lose that job to himself. And Dominic Smith can't play defense anywhere. So
he's only got the DH.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the best thing that's happened to Dominic Smith, is that there is a DH in the NL. So who are you going with here, Robbie?
Oh, geez. I'd like to know the contractual situation for Robinson Cano as far as like it's 2 years left or whatever. Because I know he's old, right? He's 40. He's close to 40. I will say it's Cano, but I mean, if the bottom's falling out, like we saw Albert Pujols just get cut last year, we saw it happen. And Cano does not have a shining reputation in MLB anymore. So he needs to come back, and thankfully they're not testing, so he can come back as he once was and juice me baby and bat 280. I think that's your DH with the Mets. Just don't need to deal with the other 2 problems. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set them aside and just face Cano.
Yeah, so spring has not been good to Robinson Cano. Spring doesn't matter that much, but I think for a guy coming back battling for a job, it deserves a little bit of attention. Here's a fun fact that kudos to the CBS crew here on this data point, because I think it's super important. In the 2020 season where the NL did have the DH, he batted .316 with a .993 OPS from the DH position. That's Dominic Smith. So I think that's a really relevant fact here. We mentioned the fact that he can't play defense. He doesn't have to stress out about the errors that he just made. He can just go and rake. So I like that for Dominic Smith. I think everybody for a while has been like, this guy can hit. He's got talent. Why hasn't he turned that corner? I think this is the opportunity for him. And I think it makes the Mets better, makes them relevant in the NL East. And I think he's the guy there, because I think JD Davis is going to steal majority of the bats at third. I think that's the reality here. So I don't know if you feel differently about that position battle or not, Robbie, but I think it helps fill the answer to this question.
Escobar got like a 3-year deal or something, didn't he? He got multi-year. Yeah, I mean, whatever. The Mets are the Mets. I just want to see DeGrom and Scherzer go back-to-back 8-inning games, and then Diaz get 3 Ks and a save.
Yep. No, I mean, the catch here, I think, is that McNeil's a lefty. JD Davis is the righty. So I think you'll see Escobar come in to play second in a lot of games, where JD comes in at third. McNeil goes to left field in a lot of those games. So I think that's the way that'll probably play out, in my opinion. But they've got good roster flexibility, which is nice because they haven't for a while.
And it'd be nice if James McCann was good. That would be nice too. If James McCann was the Chicago White Sox James McCann, not the guy who got a 4-year deal and then went to the Mets and wasn't great.
100%. Yeah, this next one's fun for you, Robbie, because one of these guys has no business in center field. One of these guys not even on the team. Rockies center fielders / right fielders, because the assumption is Blackman will slide into the DH a little more than he has, right? Because they didn't have one before. So Sam Hilliard, Connor Joe, Ramil Tapia, who is now obviously Randall Grichuk. So right. I think this is a very real battle. I'm going to say Jonathan Daza is also in this conversation. I think that one's kind of obvious. And we mentioned that Sam Hilliard can't hit, so he's probably out. But Robbie, what are your thoughts here?
I think it's just Grichuk. Grichuk goes in. This was an awesome trade for him from Toronto. He will now start and be the center fielder and have to learn how to deal with a ton of balls dropping in and preventing singles or doubles from becoming triples, like, a single from becoming a double and a double from becoming a triple. But I think he's going to be given that opportunity, and it's a great move for him. He's a good outfielder. It's just a really hard park to be in. So I'm going to give it to him. That's it. Connor Joe, I think, is going to move around a lot.
I do too.
So, and Daz is below average MLB. So
yeah, and Connor Joe in center field is just not happening. It's just not happening. I mean, that's a very bad scenario if they find that in play.
Someone pulls up lame, Connor Joe's going to go take their position while they heal.
Yep.
That's kind of the idea.
Totally agree. Dodgers second base, left fielder, which is interesting because that you don't see those two connected all that often. In terms of like a battle, right? We got Gavin Lux, former superstar prospect, AJ Pollock, former supposed to be prospect or superstar that just can't be healthy. Chris Taylor got paid like a superstar. What do you got here, Robbie?
Well, I mean, Chris Taylor, I think, is your second baseman because Gavin Lux isn't good enough right now, and Chris Taylor just got paid, and I think that just makes AJ Pollock your left fielder. So I think you're just putting the young kid on the bench. Not really a fault of his own, right? Like, I mean, he hasn't produced at a high enough level, but he also was he wasn't part of the problem. I'm not wording that right. Chris Taylor should not have been re-signed, but he was. And because of that, there will be players that suffer, right? Cody Bellinger is trying to get all of his strikeouts out of the way in spring training right now, so that he doesn't have them in the season. And, you got Hanser Alberto, who I guess is kicking around, but that's not really starter material guy with Dodgers. That's just dude. But yeah, I'm going to say Lux is on the bench and Pollock starts the year. And again, injury happens and he's there. And Chris Taylor is second baseman.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I'm just going to throw out there that hasn't been mentioned, I don't think anywhere, is the possibility of Trey Turner in center, Gavin Lux at shortstop, Chris Taylor at second base. Haven't seen it anywhere, but I think the reality and the reason I make that point is that I think Gavin Lux needs a full season of at-bats here. I think this is a make or break year for him. I think if he sits on the bench, he's a permanent backup. And I think the Dodgers have to make an effort to give him significant at-bats because you have like 3 or 4 guys that are on the cusp in that system. You need to know whether it's worth hanging on to Lux or not. So I really believe you've got Vargas, Bush. Who's the other guy missing in that group? There's one more.
Of second baseman? Or
no, just
like
the guys that are on
infielder?
the cusp on that infield depth. Who's the other one? There's one more.
It's not Vitas, Jorbit Vitas.
Vivas is the other guy, but that's not the guy I was thinking.
But he's further back.
Point is, there's lots of guys
Cody
there.
Jose? Sorry. Bush, Cody Jose. Is that who you're thinking?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's an answer. I'll take it.
Cody Jose.
But either way, there's depth there. So I think you either got to commit to Lux going back to AAA and figuring it out and coming back up, or you have to give him real at-bats at the major league level because he hasn't had that. He's had really simple, like 2 weeks, you suck, go sit down, right? Because the Dodgers have been good. It's really hard for a high-level prospect to figure it out on a really good team because there's so much extra pressure that he's faced. So I think that's a super important piece. So I just wanted to add that as a remote possibility. Next on the list, Reyes. This is their favorite thing ever. And the 2 players here are hilarious, just for the record. Reyes utility player.
Oh, jeez.
Which for the Rays, like all their players are utility players. It's just what they do.
Yeah.
Vidal Bruján and Taylor Walls.
Walls.
Who's the go-to guy here?
Walls, and the only reason is that you give Bruján full-time at bats at AAA because you've got a higher ceiling with him than you do Walls. And we still have to remember that at some point in time, they've got Harold Ramirez in camp. I think Phillips re-signed, and those are both like 4th, 5th outfield options, not 34th. Like, they're not potential starters. Ramirez only had like a brief period of time in the sun with Miami a couple years ago. But you've got the other Lau, who will come up and be a 2020 candidate as soon as he's up, I think. So you want Bruján to be your utility guy. You want Bruján to be your everyday guy at AAA, and then come up and be able to get time through injury. Whereas Taylor Walls, I think you don't need to worry as much about. Plus, Walls is a switch hitter, so you can move him around a little easier in matchup.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be Walls to start, but I think this is a contract suppression conversation that's going to be disguised as what you just said. I think Burian is the guy that should be on this team. I think Wander Franco should be playing third base, and I think Yandy Diaz should be getting less at bats. But that's not the way it's going to go because it's Tampa Bay Rays. So I think Burian starts in AAA. I think we see him in June. I think Taylor Walls is going to play a lot of third base in the late parts of games after they take Mr. Muscle, Yandy Diaz, and put him on the pine. Here's a fun one that got even more fun with the Amir Garrett trade to Kansas City. The Reds closing job. Who wants it?
They haven't been able to, like, Raisel Iglesias was always the guy. He was just like Colome, where they were always going to find someone else to take it.
Yeah.
What are my options?
This is fun. So
I can hate them all.
Luis Cessa, Lucas Sims, Art Warren, Justin Wilson, or me.
I want to say I would. I mean, I think I said it last year about if Hoffman wasn't able to do it, that he, like, as a starter, he might be fun and exciting enough. Like, he could tick up, right? We've seen other dudes tick up in the bullpen. Hoffman would be a fun one, but I mean, if that's not my list, Wilson's a lefty. He's old.
I really want Hoffman to be the closer so they can play that scene from Jump Street where they do the Mexican impersonation. He's like, yeah, I mean, it was the F, and that's his walk-in. The best.
I thought it'd be better if he came into the Baywatch theme, the Hoff. Like, I mean, why lean into something?
Up. Yeah, that's good. I like that better. That's
because the Baywatch one is like
second.
And then
mine was funny for half a second. Yours has longer term funny, and I appreciate that about it.
Because then he will still warm up throwing the pitches. Some people stand in the darkness. Anyway, but if I can't take Hoffman, I guess let's just say Art Warren. Like, I don't know.
I'm going to throw Hoffman in his 2 spring training appearances, 2 innings pitched out of the bullpen.
There we go.
He has a sparkling 0.5 whip.
Oh, I like that. That was always his problem. So he sorted it out in the 2 innings.
In his 2 innings of work. He also has an 18 K per 9 going.
Oh, I like that.
Closer numbers. Those are closer numbers.
Yeah.
He also gave up a bomb in those 2 innings.
It'll happen. There were probably no one on base and they were up 2. So he knew he was good to be aggressive.
1 run, solo job. So that is correct.
That's 2 straight years that Cincinnati has had back end rotation question marks and closer question marks headed into the season, but expectations are honestly much lower this year with Cincinnati, so they'll probably be even better.
They have question marks throughout that entire roster. I mean, let's call a spade here. They did finish the Seattle trade today. I don't know if you've seen that yet, Robbie.
No, that was official. What's the final?
Connor Phillips, who's an interesting farmhand coming from the Mariners, who is probably one of the bigger pieces of that deal. Obviously, Chase Petty came over from Minnesota, but they added another big arm who's throwing 94 to 96 with a plus slider. So, there's enough here to be an elite reliever. Again, we talked about that earlier. It's a little early to start saying good arms or elite relievers at high A, but that's what we got here. So, valuable arm, but it could also be part of this Reds closer conversation come September. That's a real strong possibility. But I like the Hoffman take, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too. Why not? Like, give him a shot.
Yep. Let's stick with Cincinnati here because this is a fun one too. 4th and 5th starters, we've got Justin Dunn, Hunter Green, Vladimir Gutierrez, and Nick Lodolo. Who do you got, Robbie?
Well, we know it's not going to be Lodolo because you don't want to waste a high potential dude like we've talked about already. I would offer the same with Hunter Green. Dunn is hurt, so that's just not going to happen. Like, that rotation's going to be
yeah,
people are not excited about Baltimore. How do you get excited about the possibility, because Castillo's going to be late too, right? And Minor, like
Mhm.
they got issues. They got issues.
That
So
is correct.
who else is? I'm just looking. I'm going to look at their depth. Hey, remember Brandon Bailey when he had Tommy John and was a Rule 5 and was sent all over? That would be fun. You know what? This sounds horrible. Zach Godley could be an April starter with Cincinnati.
I think
And
they
like,
brought him in intentionally to lose games.
that's not the kind of move. Like, that's where I would say if the potential here, now that I'm just on the page, if it's Molly, Gutierrez, and San Martin as the three that are gonna like be locked in, then you're gonna add a guy from outside the organization. I don't see how you can. You can even look like Drew Hutchinson. You can even go to Detroit and look to see what you could do just for 4 or 5 weeks worth of work from a guy like him, and then you don't know what's beyond it. That's exactly what Zach Godley could be doing there too. I just don't see why.
Luis Sessa could be a guy.
Yeah, if you've got somebody you think is there to do it, Tony Santillan, sure, like try it out, because before you go outside the organization for usefulness, you've still got guys who are gonna at some point, Castillo, Dunn, and Minor, pitch. So you don't want to like go and give up anything for it. But that sucks. Geez, those injuries are not to their advantage at all, because San Martin should be fighting for 5th, not be like a lock to like.
Can the outfielders throw fastballs? That's the question that we need to be asking.
Yeah, maybe Senzel.
All right, moving here. Astro Shortstop. We've talked about this quite a bit in our surf chat. Is it going to be the bod, Jeremy Pena? Yeah. Is it going to be Nico Goodrum? Is it going to be Shea Whitcomb, who hasn't come up anywhere? I just got to throw that flyer in there.
Well, I gave you crap because you didn't draft him in a league. I saw that somebody else drafted him. I'm like, oh, he was there and Ty didn't take him. Shame.
Just I gotta diversify just a little bit.
Which is fair. I do understand in Dynasty, if you have 5 Dynasty leagues and you own the same 8 players in all 5 of them, you are taking a massive risk. So diversifying in Dynasty is not a bad thing. However, I do have Jose Siri everywhere that I possibly can, and I'm still trying to actively acquire him preseason. But for shortstop, Jeremy Pena, it looks like the guy. Like, this is one of those rare rookies who, over the offseason, something didn't happen with Houston, which was they didn't get a veteran shortstop, whether it was their guy Correa back or someone new. So I think it's going to be Jeremy Pena, and hopefully he is able to come in and be a league average guy at the plate and develop slowly into a good major leaguer.
Well, in the minor leagues last year, he hit 297 with a 942 OPS, so suggests that he's borderline ready. But we know that Nico Goodrum is missing one thing that Jeremy Pena has, and that is a half-naked photo underneath of a waterfall. And we just don't have that from Nico Goodrum. So he's immediately behind the 8 ball for the fans. Padres 5th starter, Mackenzie Gore, Nick Martinez, Chris Paddock, Ryan Weathers. Who do you got here?
Yeah, I think if Martinez doesn't go to the bullpen, then it's Nick Martinez, because they signed him. And then you can sort out whatever the heck you want to do with Paddock after that, which I don't know that AAA to continue to work on something is a bad idea. We talked about him in the last episode, that regression instead of progression with Paddock. And then Gore, I know you're a fan of Gore. I just don't see why they would bother with him right now, unless he was like the Cy Young winner of spring training. That's a thing, right? Unless he was just so darn good, and San Diego's like those April wins, right? We need those 4 wins in April that he can provide us with. And that's a logical point if you're San Diego, because you sucked last year and you weren't supposed to, and you're going to be missing Tatis. So the wins will be a little harder to come by. Although Ha-Seong Kim will probably hit, 12, 13 dingers in April. So,
yep. So it looked like he was scheduled to piggyback Clevenger today. He threw 4 innings. So it indicates that they're making a push here. I think he will be optioned this week. I think that will be his last start. I think they're going to option him. I'll say this. I've been out on Gore for the last 5 years. I haven't liked him for a while. Didn't like the mechanics. They're a little bit better. I still don't love them, but I see what they're trying to do. The new pitching coach has said they're happy with the changes he's made. I agree. They're better. There's still a little more work to do. So I think we see Gore in like July. I think a lot of people are like, oh, he's going to go down, come right back up. Like, I think July is when we're going to see Gore. He's the best pitcher in this group right now. I think it's going to be one of Nick Martinez and Chris Paddock. But I also would really like to see Chris Paddock slide into the minors. And Ryan Weathers here is really the guy that could end up with this job that nobody thinks will win this job. He was quietly okay last year before he got hurt. I think he could find a way into that role, but his spring hasn't suggested that he's there yet. So I don't know, Rob, if you disagree with any of that or not.
I would love to see Gore come up and do well. We saw Matt Manning not pitch well at AAA and still get called up and then not pitch well at MLB. So maybe that's the scenario, right? They're just going to do it this year. This is just going to be the year, if healthy, when healthy. And the rest of it is, I mean, someone's going to get hurt in San Diego, like, or need time. So, I mean, you need 8 starters realistically at minimum. You need 8 starters ready. So you just described 8 guys. I would be cool with all of those at the back of my rotation. The upside that Paddock could bring you could be awesome. He's just right.
And I said this, I can't remember if I said this in the last episode or in this one, Robbie. I don't think Clevenger starts in the rotation. So we're talking about the 5th starter in that question. The reality is 2 of those guys are going to be in that rotation. And I think it's one of those last 3. So next on our list, this is a fun one because I know my answer already. Astros 5th starter. We've got Jake Odorizzi or Christian Javier.
Oh, geez. Oh, it's Odorizzi. In September, I think it could be Christian Javier, but in April it's going to be Odorizzi.
And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I honestly think both of them are going to be in the rotation. That's my belief. Because of the McCullers injury, you've got JV, you've got Framber, Luis Garcias, and Urquidy. I think Verlander is going to get a bit of a piggyback to start. And I think that's where Javier comes in. And I'm just going to make the assumption that somebody gets hurt and then Javier is a guy. Yeah. So that's the way I see that playing out. But I don't necessarily disagree with your take. I think that's the reality. Pirates Closer here. This is probably the worst one we've had so far because I think it's blatantly obvious. David Bednar, Chris Stanton. What do you got?
I mean, Bednar just seems like the obvious choice. But Stratton is a relief pitcher that could do it. And I know in some big money leagues, like NFBC stuff that was going on in Vegas recently, there are guys taking Stratton and assuming that it's going to come together, whether it's through trade of Bednar or injury. But I mean, Bednar has too good of a line, and I don't see Pittsburgh wanting to turn him into like the 17-18 Josh Hader, where he's not closing, but he's coming in to save games, because I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be managing the team in order to save games. I think they're going to be looking to just give players opportunity, and then Bednar can come in when, opportunities there to close, not to save a game or extend it.
Well, I find it interesting. So the notes here on CBS are that limit Bednar saves opportunities to limit his arbitration. I just don't think that's what Pittsburgh's going to do here. I think they're ready to take steps to get better. And the way they do that is to make Bednar elite and trade him. I mean, he's not going to be there for them to be elite. They've got enough arm talent, and their core is far enough away from being ready to win. I think you have to trade Bednar. I think you have to build them up so that you can break down your team. That's my opinion. I don't necessarily disagree with the same concept around Stratton. But, unless you believe Bednar to be your long-term closer, I think you have to build him up and get rid of him. That's my thoughts there. This is an interesting one as well. I can't figure out if I'm excited about the options or extremely disappointed. The White Sox designated hitter and or right fielder. Now, as of like 48 hours ago, I think this answer was really, really obvious. I think it's shifted. We've got Jake Berger, Adam Engel, Lurie Garcia, Gavin Sheets. Andrew Vaughn was the front runner. And now he's hurt with a pointer injury, whatever the hell that is. And Adam Hazley has been added to this mix with the trade
Oh,
from
that's right.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, Hazley was traded. Yeah. Hazley is not an average guy, so he is a bench player.
Quad A.
Yeah. That's what you want to rely on for him. So Luis Garcia, I feel like just gets time.
I think there's a really interesting one that's omitted from this list, Robbie, and that's Yerman Mercedes. I think that's the obvious DH option here. But I think it's him and Gavin Sheets. I really do. I think those are the two obvious ones. Jake Berger is a guy that's going to give you a little more versatility, but I think it's Gavin Sheets, and then I think it's Yerman Mercedes, and I think that's just the reality. Zach Collins, another guy that could fit here too.
Yeah, I remember watching Collins last year and being a little frustrated at how he played, and he was another one of those like cusp top 100 list guys who came up and it was doesn't have a position, and then they signed Grandal, and we saw what happened last year. And Andrew Vaughn, I mean, I know in the offseason I was trying to find a way to make it seem like, or not make it seem, but to try to find some positive way to see his season this year. But to see an injury early spring training sucks. You need him playing.
Totally agree. Next one on the list is a fun one, and that's Bryson Stop versus Dede. What do you got here, Robbie?
Well, I'm assuming Dede is going to be a perfectly fine player this year, and Bryson Stott is going to need an injury. Well, yeah, potentially, yeah. Well, we were talking about it before. Can Matt Vierling play third base? Because that would solve some problems. And then Mickey Moniak can be your defensive center fielder who could just have offensive upside. And Matt Vierling could be your overachieving offensive third baseman if Alec Boehm yet again doesn't hit Boehm's.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is here. I think you can have any of Stott, Dede, Segura play third. I think all three of them would manage that position okay. For me, I make the kid do it. I make the kid play third base. I think Alec Boehm is finding his way off of this roster really quickly. He's forgotten how to hit. He might be better serviced by starting in the minors. I think that's probably what is best for him. Whether they make that decision or not, that's a totally different animal. But I mean, Bryson Stott's had a reasonable spring. He's had 15 at-bats, 20 plate appearances, 5 walks. He's hitting .533 right now, Robbie, with a 1450 OPS. So you really can't send this kid down unless you're really playing the suppression game on purpose. But you got a 24-year-old bat, so it's going to look really bad if you do it. I think he's got to be on the roster, and I think that means he's probably got to play third base. So I'm not sure if they've moved him at third base at all.
I don't know, but I know Alec Boehm hasn't done well. I know that he hasn't done well, but at the same time, I still think you send Stott down and you would bring up in a Dede versus Stott. You would bring him up if Dede is injured or Segura gets injured, or in fact, Boehm either underperforms or himself gets injured. And then, as you said, you could have the three guys move around. But I don't think it's reasonable to think to have Dede as a bench guy, and his spring's been fine. So if we're going off anything with spring, it's just that Dede is not flat on his face missing balls. So Dede wins.
Yeah, I mean, Stott's been very good. I think I just trust the old guy to make the defensive plays. The arm has never been in question for Dede. I think he's the guy to start, and maybe Dede slides to third later, but I really believe Boehm is the odd man out here, not one of these two guys. I think that's the way it's going to play out.
Offensively, he's got something to prove. Yeah.
So this is interesting because it's a little unconventional. The Angels' 6th starter,
Yes.
Jaime Barria,
No.
Reed Detmers,
No.
and the most obvious guy of the group with the best baseball name, Jansen Junk.
Oh my God. No. But yeah, that's a name. Okay, so Ohtani's your ace. Sandoval's your second, or Thor?
I think it'll
matter.
be Thor, but I don't. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And then Jose Suarez. You know what? I guess that would mean you could just have Reed Detmers come up, because who are they? Like, who are they gonna? You're not gonna go. Are they saying Michael Lorenzen is a starter now? Is that what they're trying to say?
Yeah, I mean that's what they're trying to
we've
say.
already seen this fail. Michael Lorenzen is a better DH than he is a starting pitcher, and he's a hell of an athlete. So please don't get me wrong. And if there's someone who's going to try to work with it, it's going to be Madden. But
and as Robbie's co-host, I want you to know that you're getting him wrong, because I want to see you fight him about this.
What am I getting wrong?
That Lorenzen's a starter. I just want to see the argument.
That he is a starter?
Yeah, I just want to see other people argue you about it.
Oh, I was going to say, who would argue that he's a starter based on what they've seen? Oh, great. Okay, cool.
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, but that still doesn't have any weight. So, sure. So, yeah, if that website, podcast, whatever, believes that he's somehow a logical starter, then they should watch some of the guys pitch actual games instead of highlights, because Michael Lorenzen has tried over and over again, and it's just, I don't know. He's not starter quality, but Reed Detmer, certainly you've got the ability to do that there. And he came up last year, which is fine. And Griffin Cannon's hurt, and Chris Rodriguez is hurt. And I'm trying to think of AAA depth that they had, because they had Packy McNaughton finish last year with them, and he's out. Oh, Daniel Ponce de Leon. There we go. I thought there was a guy. I could see Daniel Ponce de Leon coming up and doing it with St. Louis for years and years. Just a guy, totally just a guy. But maybe that would be the right one to have the sixth guy if they're going to continue to do exactly what they did last year. And you do have the extra roster spots, so you could, I guess, in theory, your piggyback idea, maybe it could be a Michael Lorenzen, go through the order twice thing. But I just don't see why. I don't see what they're trying to gain out of that. Lorenzen's a better, more valuable relief pitcher, heck, even outfield option.
I agree completely. This is one that literally, like you're talking about the lesser of evils. Athletics closer. We've got Dolis Guerra, Lou Trevino, AJ Puck is an option. You can literally pick anybody in that bullpen, and they've got a line.
Right, it could change.
Yeah. So, who's your guy here, Robbie? Oakland, and do you have anybody off that list that you're looking at?
I don't have anyone specific off the list. I think it's Trevino, Trivino. It would be really cool if it became AJ Puck, though.
Yeah. So, I don't think he's going to be AJ Puck. I don't think he has closer stuff. I think he has I still think he's going to be starter guy. I think if AJ Puck's not in the rotation, which it looks very likely he's not going to be, I think he's in AAA trying to figure that out, because they need to know for sure he's not a starter before they throw him into that closer role. I don't think they're there yet.
That's a really good point. Really good point. Yeah, you're right, Ty. You gotta exhaust it before you say you're going to be the final.
There's just too much upside in that one. One guy I'm going to throw out there that is not going to be on a lot of people's lists is Domingo Azevedo. Is a guy that came over from the Yankees a few years back. This is a 27-year-old, so he's seasoned from a minor league perspective. 6'7", 240, big old boy. And he's a sneaky option. Not a great option, sneaky. 11 innings last year, 3.27 ERA, sinker ball guy. So something that only in Oakland is this their pro choice. And so once
poor
was
Sean Murphy.
Yeah, right.
Poor catcher.
Yeah, Sean Murphy is like, why not? Let's just have more guys that can make me block baseballs.
What do I care, guys? What do I care?
So I think he's just an option. Just somebody that nobody else is talking about. It's a flyer. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I looked on the site when you said that about thinking about anybody else. I'm like, no, because they do have a lot of potential starting options. I know they're potentially clearing guys out, and then I noticed that the possibility exists that Adam Oller starts his MLB career this year because of injuries with Oakland. Yeah. And Adam Oller came over from the Mets in the offseason, and thanks to Caprillion getting hurt, that is a possibility. And I don't know that I like that in April. I would rather him go back and continue to be good in AAA and then get called up. But I mean, I guess if the opportunity's there, it would just be a bonus because we talked about him a little bit in the off season. He's a guy I drafted in our big money Dynasty League last year. And I contemplated drafting him this off season, but I thought when he was still a Met, I thought it was more of a flyer because he's 27 years old. But hey, maybe because he's 27 years old, he gets a shot. That'd be cool too.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some questions that need to be asked in terms of that bullpen. I mean, if you look at the innings in the spring, we've got our obvious starter guys here. I'm just trying to get the Athletics filtered in here. Puck has a ton of innings, so that indicates they're probably going to stretch him out. Justin Grimm is a name that I haven't seen in a couple of years that's been getting some innings. That's a guy that could be there. Acevedo is in there. I was just trying to see. Austin Pruitt might bump your boy Jeffries out or Adam Oller. And
I was really saying, what about Grant Holmes? Has he? I know Blackburn was like maybe 3 years ago, Paul Blackburn. But what about Grant Holmes? Has he got innings this year?
He has not a great appearance. I think he's going to be in AAA to make sure he's ready for injuries. I think that's the reality there.
Yeah, because you got Minaya, Montas, Cole Irvin, and then it would have been, I think, Caprillion at that point, but Dalton Jeffries, who we also thought last year was going to take a starting job and then didn't. And
we just don't know whether these guys can be traded either, Robbie, right? So having Grant Holmes stretched out, I think, is an obvious thing. There's Danny Jimenez is a guy that could also be a guy there, right? He's had a reasonable spring in small innings, but good couple of appearances. So Kirby Sneeds, another guy, right? The guy that came over with Smith from Toronto, lefty, good flow. So him and AJ Puck are going to need to find a salon to get their hair done.
Was Sneed a starter? Or was he a straight reliever?
No, he's a reliever. Underappreciated guy, basically from we don't care about lefties.
Right, he came up last year. Yeah, okay.
Yep, he's from the we don't care about lefties front office with Zach Bergen and all those guys, right? Or not Zach Bergen. What's Bergen's first name?
I don't know, but it's Bergen.
I know it's Bergen, so we're gonna hang our hat on that. All right, next question. We are moving past that. Cubs closer: Michael Givens, Chris Martin, David Robertson, Rowan Wick. Wow, this is the game. Is it 2014? Welcome to the game. What do you got, Robbie?
I'll say you give it to Wick. And I was looking at the Cubs rotation earlier today. I looked and I'm like, this is the rotation of a 78 win team. And that's exactly what it looks like. Like a bunch of dudes that can have 10 to 12 wins. And that means there are save opportunities that will be there. So the Cub closer could be a 25 plus save guy. Now we know the further away we get from the mid 2000 and teens, the fewer 30 plus closers there are. Typically there's only a dozen a year. Sorry, there aren't even a dozen a year. So I don't think I would say 30, but I would say you could get somebody who's in the 20s, upper 20s possibly. And Wick could be the guy. Givens is just like a bullpen dude, not necessarily like the closer, right? Like if you sign Daniel Hudson, he's going to get a shot to be the last guy. But if you're bringing in Givens, that's not necessarily the case. And the rest of the dudes are just pieces. So I think you give Wick the option or the most opportunities.
Well, and we've seen Givens get the chance in other spots. And I mean, he's starting to get up there in age, and same with Robinson, obviously. So I agree.
Have him be experienced guy in the bullpen and have Wick be the guy in the bullpen.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Same question, closers, Nationals. We got Steve Cishek, Sean, don't give up 40 runs a game, Doolittle, Kyle Finnegan, Will Harris, and Tanner Rainey. What do you got here, Robbie?
Yeah, I've got Finnegan, and I honestly thought a year ago, because of Cincinnati's situation, that Doolittle was like really sneaky and could have been something. And oh man, was that off. That's why they're called flyers, because sometimes they fly away. And he was terrible. So I'm not going to give him the respect he once had in Washington. But what I will do is I will say, you got Tanner Rainey and you got Kyle Finnegan, and those to me are the two dudes. But you give it to Finnegan, and maybe Rainey, because Rainey's had more issues with control and things like that. So I would just trust Finnegan, and I also think the Washington Nationals team is pretty good. So I think again we could have a 20+ save guy. So I don't think it's going to be a couple guys in the teens.
I think you have 2 20+ save guys on that team. I think it's going to be Rainey and Finnegan. I think it's going to be by committee with those two. And I think it's just going to be a matchup game because Finnegan's a lot safer. Rainey's the flamethrower. I think those both have a place on this team. I think Rainey's the guy this time next year. I don't think he's ready yet, but I think that's the reality. I'm going to skip over the next question because it's just fun. This one, Blue Jays designated hitter. One option is Alejandro Kirk. The other option was Brandon Grichuk, obviously traded. But I'm going to throw two other options in at you.
Well, I already know who one of them is going to be.
Greg Bird, for sure. You know that one's coming. And I'm also going to add Josh Palacios. And the reason that I'm going to put him in there is because he's a decent defensive outfielder with a left-handed bat. And the Jays clearly like him. So that's the one I'm going to put in there. What are your thoughts here, Robbie?
If I can only pick one, I'll say Kirk because he's got the better offensive set of all of those dudes. But I think the platoon option would be there for Alejandro Kirk and Bird to rattle off each other. And then the potential also exists for Vlad to take some days off first base to go to DH. And that's when you put Bird in at first. So I think Bird would win in an at-bat total between Kirk and Bird if Bird is hitting. But of course, he might get 109 at-bats by the time we see the summer. And we know that he's just like kicking around. And the Jays might be looking to upgrade that lefty guy. But either way, I mean, I think I'm just happy to see that Greg Bird is in a situation where you can now talk about him every podcast, and it's somewhat reasonable discussion.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 1,200 OPS this spring. I mean, that's not nothing. Well, I mean, he's got 18 at bats, right? So I mean, those are reasonable ratios, and he's had good at bats against starters, right? So he's not been coming in late in games where you see a lot of guys like Bird get at bats. He's been thrown right into the fire, which I like. Nathan Luce is another guy that I mentioned to you before the show.
Right.
As a guy, also left-handed bat, giving super aggressive at bats. The thing that to me is the one red flag, although he's had really, really good at bats, his strikeout numbers are still fairly reasonably high for the limited at bats. But there's enough there. I think he's just a really good next man up in that scenario. But I think you're right. I think it's Kirk.
Who was the guy from the Padres, Ty?
Gosuke Katoa.
Katoa, yeah. Keep that name familiar. When we start talking about AAA guys, if Katoa, former Padre farmhand, well, whatever, he was just there last year, drafted by the Yankees 8 years ago, something like that.
And big thing here for the Jays, like Kirk's going to be a guy. All the other guys we mentioned are left-handed bats, so they've lined him up because the Jays' starting lineup is very heavily right-handed. For those of you that didn't know that. Fifth starter on the Mariners. We kind of touched on this a little bit in our last episode, Robbie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The options are pretty interesting here, though. I'll start with the least likely one in Levi Stout, Justice Sheffield, and then the high-end guys, Matt Brash and George Kirby.
Yeah, like Brash and Kirby don't have a major league pitch yet, like thrown. They have not thrown a major league pitch. So Seattle doing the suppression thing makes sense. But again, 100-win team, you might throw Brash out there to give yourself the best shot in April, because last year, April and May, I think by the end of May, maybe the Mariners were 10 games under 500. They were out because they had such a horrible May. And DePoto, genius that he is, will not want to have a 500 ball club at the end of any month. So he's not going to say for the sake of something, right? He was extended last year, 3-year extension. So he can let his stars come up and play, but I don't think that's going to be George Kirby. That's your highest ceiling guy. So that could be Brash. That could be Brash comes up. he gets 4 to 6 starts to see what he can do. We saw how horribly wrong it went with Kansas City last year. So perhaps if they don't like what they see early, they decide not to do that. They do have some other options. I did write a thing about it on RobbieBaseball.com. Shameless plug. And you can check it out there because there's some options there. But if I'm giving it to a guy, I'll say Brash, because to me, it's okay to let him start his service clock and let Kirby go to AAA and get 40, 60 innings. Have him be your rotation upgrade in season, kind of like Manoah was for the Jays last year. And if any other starting pitcher prospects came up and were good for their team.
And one thing to note on these sort of scenarios is, like, look at what they did with their bullpen, right? They brought in Sergio Romo last week.
So many guys. Right?
They've got Diego Castillo, Steckenrider, Seawald, Ken Giles coming back on his second year of his 2-year deal. Andres Munoz, who's a guy that very few people are going to know about at a high level, is a guy to watch, probably the best arm in that bullpen. Eric Swanson, Nick Marjavis, the aforementioned Justice Sheffield, and Eric Swanson is a guy. The one guy I will say that's in the minors that had a really great spring last year and then got hurt was Andrew Władykowski. He was looking really, really good in the Yankees camp last year, then got hurt and never, ever resurfaced. Could be a guy in the bullpen.
He did pitch a little bit with Baltimore. Yeah. He did pitch a little bit with Baltimore. And Nick, I think Margajace, however you do say it, he started a bit with San Diego a couple years ago and then kicked around. And they did have Robert Duggar, who was recently traded to Tampa Bay. So watch for him to get Cy Young votes. But maybe Nick Marjavegas, whatever it is, sorry for the pronunciation, maybe he gets innings too. Wojciechowski, and then that allows them to let Brash go to AAA as well. And maybe, because the rotation itself is not golden. It's just like middle of the road, Gonzalez, Flexen, and then, everybody hates Robbie Ray this year, but I think we're going to see a good Robbie Ray. And then you got Gilbert. So you do have 2 high upside guys, but it's Flexen and Gonzalez that are going to need to just like come in, give you 5.1 or 5.2 inning average and be able to turn it over with the team, tied or in the lead. Like those are going to be the most important dudes.
We're for sure going to see both Brash and Kirby this year. That's the preferred outcome.
Healthy, you'll see. Yeah.
Yes. That's what we want to see as both fans of baseball and fantasy owners. Heading to St. Louis, we're talking outfield at bats, designated hitter at bats, Corey Dickerson, Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar, and Juan Yepez. Who you got, Robbie?
If Nootbaar could offer more for fantasy owners, and I've said it before, I would love that. That would be very excellente, but he just seems like a really league averagey type guy, like 40 to 50 run RBIs is kind of going to be his thing. It's going to need to be the tick up in average. So if you're looking for a little more, then Yepez is obviously the guy you want to see at DH. Pujols has since signed, so that's going to muddy the waters. But yeah, like give the at bats to Nootbaar, please, and let's see if he can be a more impactful player. And on the DH side, give it to Yepez and see what he can do. But it's not. It's going to get screwed up with Pujols.
Well, I mean, you for sure have a Pujols C-Dick platoon. No questions about that. I think you're going to see by season's end, Nootbaar is going to be off this roster, either designated or in AAA. I don't. He has 3 options, so he's going to be in AAA.
He could get the Lane Thomas treatment, get traded to some other team, and all of a sudden be an MLBer. Wouldn't that
very
be
realistic here? The reality is, though, I think you're going to see Yepez because he can play a little bit of outfield. And there's enough defense replacements available to that team and that roster that I think you'll see Yepez later in the year. Not early. I don't think he's going to make it, but I think he's going to be first man up. I think the reality of the way it plays out, I think he should be on the roster. I just don't think that's the way it's going to go.
Okay.
We're getting near the end here, so 2 more left. The Braves, 4th and 5th star. I don't want touches with a 10-foot pole. I don't want to own these guys. I don't want to have them. So, Robbie, we went over this briefly when I was introducing this as an idea for us to cover in this episode.
Yeah.
Hunter Davidson, Kyle Muller, Spencer Strider, Tuki Toussaint, Kyle Wright, and Huascar Ynoa.
Yeah. So I think you want and Wright to start. You want Muller to go down to AAA and to pitch well and control himself, and then you want him to come up. But you only have one lefty, so if you're like, we need 2 lefties, then I guess you can start off by giving Tucker Davidson. But I would rather Muller be your guy who gets the bulk of the starts between those two, if you're doing like that. But Huskar, whatever, he was good last year up until his injury. I know I had him in the home league, and he was one of those pleasant surprises. And then Kyle Wright has not delivered. Is that the right way? He started in the playoffs, right?
He stank.
Yeah, but he started. Like the organization trusts him, so I think he just gets a job because they trust him. But like
he does
Ian
have
Anderson,
3 sparkling innings this spring.
Well, okay, there we go. Ian Anderson, be better. Max Fried, don't regress, and Charlie Martin, cool. be fine, and then that gives you some freedom to finalize the final 2, and then at some point, hopefully, you're getting good production from 4 and 5, and then that allows the volatility that might come with Morton, some Fried regression, and whatever Anderson's going to be doing.
Well, you've got limited innings for all these guys, so it's really hard to tell. Like Davidson leads the team with 5, so it's really hard to get an understanding of who. Well, but look at you've got him with 5. Muller's got 4.2. Strider at 4.1. Sean Newcomb got 3.2. Just a fun note.
Stay calm, Ty. Stay calm.
Kyle Wright at 3 innings, and Inoa at 3 innings as well. All of them have actually very reasonable numbers. Muller is the worst with a 3.86 ERA with 5 strikeouts. So decent pitching coming out of the Braves camp so far this spring. So that is a tough one. I think Davidson's going to be one of the guys to break camp, and I think the fact that they've pushed him out there, he's got 8 Ks across 5 innings, 8.8 WHIP, 211 batting average against him. I think he's going to be a guy. I think there's a reason they're giving him the extra innings. Whether he's the guy that finishes there, that's my thoughts, Robbie. I don't know if that's helpful to give you any indications to change your answers or not.
No, I'm sticking with my thing because I like Muller if he has his command to be your 5th guy, and SP4 would be cool. And then, but like, see what Wright can do. See what I can do.
Yep. And then the very last one, and this is so perfect, Robbie. Brewers first baseman, is it going to be Keston here or is it going to be Rowdy Tellez?
Oh, so like more at bats by the end of the season?
The question is, who's the first baseman?
Oh, just like opening day, who's the first baseman?
I don't know.
I just want to get it right.
These are spring battles. Don't ask me questions that I don't know the answer to.
Well, you could modify. I am going to say it is Keston Hiura. They just have more in the organization for him. You're going to give him your opportunity before you give it to Rowdy because you kind of know what Rowdy is when he's happy, healthy. So, yeah, Keston Hiura.
Stupid. Just stupid. Rowdy Tellez is the guy. There's no questions here. He's significantly more consistent. Someone needs to give this guy regular at-bats. Just give it to him. And if he doesn't do it, then come back on the scenarios that everybody's assumed. This guy can hit. Just let him, right? This is a very interesting scenario that doesn't happen a lot where you get a guy that's been suppressed this long from at-bats. Tyler O'Neill was that guy. I was telling you then, I'm telling you again, this is a guy that can absolutely rake. Go get him. Keston here is not that guy. Do not go get him.
Yeah, I'm not saying go get him. You just asked me who was going to be the first baseman. I think they would be more in line to give it to Hiura and make a change if needed. But I don't think if they're choosing between the two, they'd give it to Rowdy. That's my.
Well, let me ask you this: if I was to offer you a scenario of recency bias and tell you that Keston Hiura went 0 for 2 today with 2 strikeouts, what's that do to your answer?
Who did he go 0 for 2 against? Because when I tried to tell you, oh, that's a good pitcher.
Is it though? He gave up 5 hits and 3 earned runs in his very short 2 1/3.
It's a major league pitcher. I don't know.
And he got dusted. It's exactly the point I've been making.
But it's a good major league pitcher, not a crummy major league pitcher. Well, you know what, Ty? No, I'm not going to let that sway me because it's a small sample. And
do you want a slightly bigger sample? Do you want to see the strikeouts he
no,
had the day
stop it.
before?
I'm not changing for the purpose of I've liked Keston Hiura for a while, and I was sad when he sucked. And I traded him in a dynasty league where he was found gold for me. And I ended up getting Chris Bryant out of it. And I've got one final year of Chris Bryant dominance left. And thank goodness he went to Colorado. And I hope he rakes and I win my championship. And then Keston Hiura can be good too. And the world can be good. And yeah, such is life. That's it, Ty. There's our 30-minute podcast, an hour and 25 minutes.
I like it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my
We're
God.
good at short things. So it's a good spot to leave it. We know now that Rowdy Tellez is starting first baseman for the Brewers. And until next time, it's been Rob and Tyler here on Dingers.